Thanks so much. Have a nice weekend. Let's move now to the war in Afghanistan. Yes, it's officially over for sure, but for many Americans, the impact will last far beyond the length of that war. A lifetime, in fact.
Yeah, Army veteran and author of a new book called Surviving Son, Scott DeLuzio. He lost a brother in that fight, and he joins us now to share his own story and his own message of hope. Thank you so much for coming on. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott and Anita, for having me.
Yeah, you know, your book is really timely. I mean, giving everything that is coming out of Afghanistan and what we're learning here. I mean, I just want to ask you, does it hurt you to see the way it all came to an end?
You know, I do wish that the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan went a little bit better. We can always, look back and second guess things, but I try to look at the positives and think that, sometimes people say all of the lives, including my brother's life, who was killed in Afghanistan, that they were all lost for nothing. And I feel like by looking at the positives, we can look at the good that was done by taking the fight to the enemy and fight in their backyard and prevent another 9/11 style attack here in America. And I feel like we've accomplished that goal of keeping that fight over there, and we've saved countless American and also Afghan lives by not having them live under the Taliban rule for the last 20 years. So, and then you can also look at things like the schools and the infrastructure projects that we provided to them and gave them a little bit of a taste of freedom.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear a positive tone when we're talking about it, because so much that has been discussed has been negative. I do want to ask you about your brother. You know, I'll never forget sitting in the theater at Saving Private Ryan and being so moved by that storyline, the idea of having to fight knowing that you've lost a brother. My understanding is that personally happened to you, Scott. Can you tell our viewers what happened?
Yeah, so my brother and I were both deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. We were in separate units, so we're not stationed together, with each other. But he was tragically killed shortly, into this deployment. Not shortly into this deployment, but when he was killed, I found out shortly after he was killed and ended up in a firefight myself, just maybe 20 or so minutes after finding out that he was killed. And so it was a very terrible situation for me, where I had to deal with the loss of my brother and then set that aside and put on the Army hat again and go and continue to fight, even with dealing with the grief of losing my brother.
Yeah, wow, that just says a lot about your resolve. I mean, wow. We hear over and over about service members dealing with PTSD. And I want to ask you, is the military, in your opinion, doing enough to help our veterans?
Well, I think that the military, the VA, and organizations like that are doing the best that they can with the resources that they have available to them. It would be great to see more resources going towards veteran issues. But on my podcast, the Drive On podcast, I also talk about the issues that people are dealing with. I personally knew several veterans who took their own lives due to PTSD and the stresses of combat that they dealt with. And the numbers of people who are struggling with mental health are just staggering. And there's so many organizations that are out there who are trying to help out veterans. And one of the problems is they just don't have enough awareness of what they're trying to do out there. And so a lot of times veterans just feel helpless because they tried one thing or another and it didn't work for them, and they feel like all their options are exhausted. And there are so many different options out there for them. And by listening to the podcast and doing the research and finding these organizations, you can really find that there's a lot being done for veterans, and we can really help erase the mental health and the veteran suicides from being the big problem that it actually is.
That's a great message, Scott. We're out of time. Very quickly, if there's one thing you hope readers take away from the book, it is what?
I hope that they learn about the issues that veterans deal with in my book, Surviving Son, which you can get on Amazon or survivingsonbook.com, and learn about those issues and find great ways to talk about the issues that we face with veterans.
Scott DeLuzio, thank you so much for talking with us today, and your book, of course, Surviving Son. And we want to thank you also for your service to our country.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
8:23.